This is me and Olive's presentation on pages 90 through 96 of Heart of Darkness.
In this part of the novella, Marlowe's steamer travels down the Congo River and encounters a narrow passage surrounded by a gloomy, dark forest. As Marlowe describes his surroundings, such as the layout of the deck and the staff on the steamer, including the African-American helmsman, the boat is ambushed by arrows. While under fire, Marlowe describes the savage natives he sees along the bushes on the shore, yet orders the helmsman to continue forward towards the station despite panic from the others on the boat. Although the helmsman tries to fight back at the natives with his rifle, he is shot by an arrow and eventually dies. Marlowe narrates his reaction to the helmsman's death and his assumption that Kurtz has likely died as well. Finally, there is an interruption in Marlowe's story at the end of the passage where the unnamed narrator on the Nelly describes the eerie circumstances under which Marlowe relates his experience. Marlowe's story resumes and his dialogue clearly reveals his discomfort in recounting and resurfacing the memories of his journey. In the first few paragraphs, Marlowe depicts the changes in the river's appearance from seemingly lush greenery to bland, discolored, savage nature as the steamer approaches Kurtz's station. His choice to personify the river and forest as humans gives the land life while also contributing to the savage depictions of Marlowe's surroundings as he ventures deeper into the unsafe, foreboding territory. Another example is the descriptive word choices surrounding the helmsman's death, which evidently plays a larger role in Marlowe's development than even he realizes in the moment. The anaphora and imagery contributes to the profound impact that witnessing the death has on Marlowe, as he seems to be quite deeply affected by it, despite not being particularly acquainted with the helmsman prior to his death. We see Marlowe acknowledge his feelings, but without knowing why he cares so much for this lower-class worker, as he even says earlier, his lustrous and inquiring glance enveloped us both. Marlowe's narration is interrupted once during this passage as the unnamed narrator describes Marlowe's physical appearance, which is that of a tired, worn-down man who has been through much hardship and trauma. The author's choice to add this short interruption gives the readers a more unbiased view of Marlowe, as we can now truly see how his time on the Congo affected him in the long run, from the point of view of the unnamed narrator.
Let's take a look at the contrasting motifs that are seen in this section. First one we can see is the light and dark motif. At first glance, the two rivers looked very similar, but as they entered the West Side River, it seemed to be much more narrow than the other one, and it had overgrown trees and bushes. Had to take the West Side River as that was the way to the station. This just gives a general idea of what the station must be like if the journey there is bad. This light and dark aspect allows us to see that even though the path was what they were told to do, it doesn't mean that it was a good path. The dark path was where they were led to by the humans. The next contrasting motif that we can see is civil versus savage. The contrast between civil versus savage is seen in the quote as the civil ones are the ones in the nice boat that is taking them down the river to where they need to go. Meanwhile, the savages are on the side of the river and are in the forest attacking the civil people. Using certain languages like glaring eyes sheds a light on how the perceived savages are seen through the eyes of the civil people. This also puts in place an unofficial social class hierarchy due to the privileges that the people on the boat are given compared to the people in the forest. This is important as it is highlighting the lack of respect that the civil and savages have for each other, while at the end of the day, they are all humans. The final contrasting motif that we can see is inferiority and superiority. This quote ties back to the social hierarchy that I spoke about before. The diction shown in this quote is quite important to the contrasting motif as it strongly highlights the superiority that is present. Using words such as pink pajamas contrast the two groups of people, as it was stated that the people in the forest barely had clothes on, as mentioned when said naked breasts in the previous quote. This emphasizes the privilege given to the people on the boat. Next, let's take a look at the thematic motifs that are addressed in the section. The first one we can see is lies / hypocrisy. So this quote was after the ship attack, and there was a sense of betrayal that Marlowe felt because they were just ambushed down the path that Kurtz told them to take to get to the station. This betrayal also comes from being tired of the darkness and the lies that Marlowe has been going through. The next motif that we can see is the darkness motif. We can see in this quote that the darkness is taking Marlowe because it seems like he's drowning. Kurtz's influence is taking over him, and he's almost debating with himself whether Kurtz is good. At this point, we can see that he admires Kurtz, as he calls him gifted, but then also talks about the voices he hears. This is the darkness taking over him, and his conscience telling him it's bad. There's this internal conflict going on. The final motif that we can see is the power corrupts. Marlowe is disappointed in this quote that they got attacked by the people in the forest, but he's thinking about the reason that he went down to the river in the first place. He's reminded that he's to talk to Kurtz, but is somewhat frustrated by the fact that that's the only reason that he's in this situation. This motif that power corrupts can be seen because Marlowe is looking to talk to Kurtz, who has power, and Marlowe is being put into a bad situation because of this quote-unquote want for power. Finally, we have the archetypes that are addressed in the section. First one is the journey into the unknown. This archetype can be seen in the beginning of the section and starts off the deception that Marlowe is going through. Because of the lack of knowledge that Marlowe was given, he's taken down a road that he's unsure of, which ultimately leads to the attack in the dangerous, shallow waters. The next archetype is the wilderness. The wilderness that surrounds Marlowe is a metaphor to the darkness that he is further descending into. As he's going down to the river, he's surrounded with trees and greenery, which can be seen as the corruption that lies beneath the civilization and what is hidden in the quote-unquote civilized people. The idea is that everyone is corrupt and there is a bit of darkness everywhere you go, even in the most civil society. The final archetype seen in this section is the mentor. The mentor is seen as Kurtz in this situation. Even though he isn't directly in the section, he's still influencing Marlowe and testing the morals and beliefs of him. This ties into the power corrupts motif, as Marlowe was good before Kurtz led him astray. This puts Marlowe in a position to question his morals, his desire for power, and place the idea of the consequences of unchecked ambition.
In the context of the entire novella, the ambush is one of the factors leading to Marlowe's initial decline into madness. Although he doesn't reach Kurtz's level of insanity and immorality, we can see the mental strain that his experiences in Africa have put on him as he tells the story on the Nelly. That, along with the death of the helmsman, seems to have taken its toll on Marlowe as he reflects on the concept of death and the true dangers and risks he endured on his trip. The syntax of the last few paragraphs are demonstrative of Marlowe's spiral as his obsession over meeting Kurtz intensifies due to his belief that Kurtz is dead, which is continued further in the passage. Overall, the importance of the ambush scene is its role in Marlowe's morality and mental state, and its depiction of the savagery of both nature and mankind.